What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel and to another video. Today we are ranking the 26 episodes of season 1 of Demon Slayer. Y'all have been asking for this for months, maybe even well over a year, but I've been putting it off because I feel like it's actually going to be kind of difficult to do. I love so many of the episodes, so yeah, it's gonna be a little hard to do. But I do intend to rank all of the Demon Slayer episodes, but since there are over 60, I'm gonna be nice to myself and not try and do it all in one video. We would be here a very long time. So today we are starting with season 1, which is the longest and most difficult one to do. I do feel like season 1's a bit underrated because there are so many great seasons and so many great moments in other seasons as well as the story progresses. But season 1 kind of flies under the radar. I was looking at the episodes and I was like, man, there was actually a lot of good stuff in this season. So we're gonna dive right in, but before we do, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment your thoughts. How would you rank season 1? Let me know in the comments. Also, I'm trying to get more followers on Instagram. In fact, I'm trying to hit 30K by my 30th birthday, which is about 3 months away. Not likely, but I'm trying. Y'all can help me out with this though. My Instagram has a lot of stuff that doesn't get posted anywhere else, like photos and stories, so you definitely want to check it out. It is linked in the description of this video. But with that, this is gonna take a while, so we should get right into it. All right, so I found this list. It was pre-made. It goes all the way through Swords of Village, but like I said, we're going to stop at the end of season 1. I will pretty shortly make tier list of all the episodes, so definitely stay tuned for that. And you might notice that my tier list only goes down to a B, which is a 7 out of 10. Fun fact, that is actually the lowest I've ever rated a Demon Slayer episode. So yeah, I'm a biased fan, what can I say? But let's start with episode 1. I very much remember the first time I ever watched episode 1. I was still pretty new to anime in general. I had already seen Attack on Titan, I had already seen My Hero Academia, Death Note. There were quite a few animes that I did watch before I started watching Demon Slayer. So I was a newbie, but I also immediately called the moment he was with his like happy family, the music was happy, my husband and I looked at each other and we were like, all right, well, they're all dying. And we were correct. I think this episode does a fantastic job at starting out the series with the expectations that it is going to be pretty intense, pretty tough. There's going to be a lot of sadness, a lot of death, and that's what you're signing up for. On top of that, Giyu Tomioka gets introduced as well, so love that. And the soundtrack is stunning. I honestly kind of miss season 1 soundtrack. It's a little bit more unique and nostalgic than it is now. And that's not to say that the soundtrack is bad now. I've talked a lot about how much I love like the movie soundtrack from Infinity Castle and that sort of thing. So I'm not saying that it's not as good as it was, but season 1 definitely had a very unique sound that was very different and very beautiful. And I feel like in episode 1, just the track at the very end with the vocals and everything was just really, really gorgeous. Overall, episode 1 can be so difficult to nail because you've got to get the audience interested in watching the show. I think episode 1 is a masterclass in how to set up a story super well and how to get your audience interested in finding out what happens next. I am going to actually put episode 1 in A+. I tend to find episode 1 of most animes to be meh, but there are very few animes where episode 1 was like, oh wow, this is really quite good. Demon Slayer is definitely one of them. All right, episode 2, the introduction of Urokodaki and also the introduction to the slapstick comedy in the show. Something that I didn't realize my first few watches. Slapstick comedy is a very common thing in Demon Slayer, especially in season 1. It really establishes itself to be a mix of these really serious moments, these emotional moments, but also have a lot of just silly little comedy that's, I call it slapstick because it's not like they're telling jokes, it's just like over the top silly. And episode 2 introduces that literally right off the bat. We get our first introduction to like silly, over the top animation, Tanjiro just being kind of silly. And I actually really like that they introduced it in this way. On top of that, we also meet Urokodaki, who happens to be one of my favorite like side characters. I actually really like him. And I don't really know why, because he's pretty mean to Tanjiro at the very beginning of the show. We meet our first demon who isn't Nezuko, so it's our first like bad demon. That fight is actually kind of fun. I like that it introduces how they're anomalies, right? You know, this is our first experience as an audience with Tanjiro experiencing something being beheaded and not dying. Like the demon is pretty much fighting with two different bodies the entire time. So it really does a good job at introducing us to the kind of gross idea of how demons operate. And we also start Tanjiro's training arc, of course. Urokodaki takes him to the mountain where Tanjiro has to get back down and that sort of thing. So this episode is really good. I would say in the grand scheme of things, it's not as good as many of the others, but I still give it an 8 out of 10, which looks low on my list, but it is still a very well done episode. Even just the shot in this picture with the sunrise behind them is chef's kiss. All right, episode 3, which I believe was named Sabito and Makomo for obvious reasons. This is like the full training arc episode because we really, like episode 2 ended with him being accepted as a student. And then episode 3 covers 2 years of training. I really enjoyed this episode. And number one, I really like Sabito. I think he's quite interesting. I don't love him as much as a lot of the people in the fandom do. Some people are like heavily obsessed with him. And that I don't fully get because we spend such little time with him, but whatever, you do you. I very distinctly remember the first time watching. Again, my husband and I looked at each other when he was narrating, like, okay, a year went by. Oh, another year went by, we were like, oh, we like this show because we like the animes that just get on with it. Not gonna lie. Cut out all the crap, just get to the point. I say that as someone who doesn't necessarily agree with that anymore though, because I've watched Naruto and I'm working on One Piece and I am enjoying getting to spend like a lot of time on them just kind of being silly, which we don't really get much of with Demon Slayer. The end of this episode is also every single time it gives me chills. Every single time when he, like, Sabito, like, disappears and Tanjiro had sliced the rock. Does it make sense? No. Do they ever really explain how that worked? No. Do I love it? Yes. I'm gonna put episode 3 probably 9 out of 10. That feels about right. Episode 4 with final selection, the start of the hand demon. I think this was a really good one because this is the episode that also introduced water breathing, which becomes such a prevalent part of the story. And it just introduces breathing styles in general. We heard a little bit about it previously, but we didn't get to see them yet. So I did really like this episode. I love that it explored Tanjiro's angry side too. At this point in the series, he is kind of depicted as very hardworking and also very kind, almost to a fault, right? In this episode, we get a first glimpse to his true, like, anger, and I love how they depict it by his pupils turning red. It's like he's literally seeing red. I just love that moment. I think that's, like, a really genius way to show anger in a character. I wish they did it with him more, because he does get angry quite a lot. But I really liked the action sequence. This episode really introduces the true beauty of the animation of Demon Slayer, although the episodes leading up to it also did, so it doesn't really change much. It just kind of adds in the, okay, this is a show that has some really beautiful fight sequences, right? The stakes are also very high. The introduction to final selection is interesting to say the least. I have a lot of thoughts on final selection. That'll be another video for another time. But I did really like this episode. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 as well. I feel like a lot of the episodes in season 1, because we're really building up the story, kind of find themselves in that like 8 to 10 range. So this one, even though I would say I probably like it a little bit better than episode 2, you know what? I think I like it better than episode 3 too. This is really hard. Why is this so difficult? Oh my goodness. Okay. Episode 5, the only thing I can really remember about it is Tanjiro and Nezuko's reunion, which is, by the way, makes me tear up every single time because Nezuko's been asleep for 2 freaking years. And then Urokodaki, when he hugs them and the tears are coming out of his mask, I lose it, okay? I lose it. That being said, the rest of the episode, it does a good job of explaining how the Demon Slayer core works. It does a good job at kind of introducing Zenitsu, Kanao, and Genya, but at the same time, I feel like it's kind of just in the middle for everything else, because most of the rest of the episode, I barely remember. I'm not gonna lie. It's one of those ones where it's good for what it does, but I am gonna have to put it in B, just because my expectations on Demon Slayer episodes is a little bit higher than average because I love so many. I mean, goodness, 7 out of 10 is the lowest I have on my list for a reason. So still a very good episode, still makes me emotional, like I tear up every single time, but I find the rest of the episode to be rather forgettable. Mr. Swamp Demon, I hate this guy. Not enough people talk about how annoying the Swamp Demon is with his little teeth grinding. I know it's supposed to be annoying. I know it's supposed to make us cringe, but I don't want to be plugging my ears while I'm watching a show, okay? And quite frankly, I came this close to multiple times. This episode is still very good of introducing Tanjiro and Nezuko's teamwork. Of course, this is Tanjiro's very first mission as a Demon Slayer, so it's kind of a big deal. It's really exciting, but at the same time, it is okay. I would give this one an 8 out of 10. I think it's good. I think the action sequence is nice. This one does kind of get us introduced to the main villain, although the next one is a much bigger introduction because we actually get to meet him. But I feel like 8 out of 10 is probably the best I can give it because it's very good, but it's good. You know what I mean? That's that. Episode 7. So I love the fact that in this show, we not only are introduced to who the big bad is, we are presented with him immediately at the very beginning of the show. Episode 7, introducing Muzan. I feel like not a lot of shows do that anymore. Most shows do go the route of waiting to reveal the big bad for quite a while, or you just never really know who the big bad is until you can finish everything, look back and go, oh yeah, that was the big bad at the end of the day. For example, Naruto had multiple villains, multiple big bads, and for most of Shippuden, we had an idea of who that was. And then at the very last minute, they weren't the big bad. It was somebody else completely. I didn't really like that plot. I prefer to just know who the big bad is, and we're working towards a goal of getting rid of that big bad for the show. I like that. I almost feel like it's unique now because most shows go the route of you don't know who it is until later, or you don't know until after all is said and done. That being said, this episode has some good moments. There is the moment where Tanjiro tells the guy that lost his fiance with the swamp demon, no matter what, you have to keep moving forward. And it's a really beautiful moment that really depicts Tanjiro's kindness and empathy for people. Because when that guy grabbed him and just started berating him, how would you understand? Why would you say that to me? You're just a kid. Tanjiro had every right to be like, bro, are you for real right now? I lost my entire family, dude. He had every right to just be like, don't talk to me like that, because that would be a very sensitive topic to most people. But he instead just stays quiet and smiles calmly at him, which shows his maturity and his kindness and his empathy. And it's enough for the guy to be like, oh, frick, he's been through a lot because of his hand, his super calloused hands and that sort of thing. And then the introduction to Muzan's very good, but it's a pretty transitional episode. Still, I'm gonna put it 7 out of 10. Still very good, still a great introduction, but again, in the grand scheme of all of the episodes, it's all right, episode 8, we get introduced to Tamayo and Yushiro, who become very prevalent to the rest of the story. I freaking love how in this episode, we are 8 episodes in, and we've already kind of diverted from the established way demons work, right? And we've been diverted from that since the very beginning, because we as an audience, the very first demon we ever come in contact with is Nezuko, who is able to control herself and is a good person and a good demon. So even though there's this established idea by now at episode 8 that demons are bad, they murder, they eat, a lot of them do it mindlessly, it's just they want to eat humans, their only life goal is to just kill as many humans as they can. We are diverted from that again with Tamayo and Yushiro, and they represent good demons once again. That would feel a little bit weird and out of place if they were introduced here and then we never heard from them again, but they are very prevalent to the rest of the story. I won't get into too many details because some of it still hasn't been animated, but I do really like the introduction of them. We learn a lot in this episode about Tanjiro's goal of turning Nezuko into a human. I think from the beginning until now, he's just kind of like, well, I'm a slayer, so I'm gonna ask demons how to turn them back into a human, I guess. But this is the first time we actually hear not only how that can happen, but that there is a way that Tamayo can try to help him in this situation. So I really do enjoy this episode. Again, a transitional episode, but I like this one just because I like what they introduced to the story. I don't want to just put all the transitional episodes in 7 out of 10 because I think they all serve a purpose to the story. I'm a firm believer that the heavy action in the show does not just equal to that's when the show is best. I really love the character interactions in the show, and I think episode 8 does a really, really good job of introducing new characters, making them interesting, diverting our feelings very early on what demons are. So I'm gonna put this one in 8 out of 10. Episode 9, Susumaru and Yahaba. I don't remember. I think it's actually the name of the episode is actually just like the hand demon. No, not the hand demon, because we already have the hand demon. I don't remember the name of the episode every single time. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to think what my thoughts are on this episode. I do think these demons are quite interesting. I'm like going way off topic. I'm second guessing my episode 5 ranking all of a sudden because I just remembered I was thinking about how Susumaru, the way she dies, which I don't think is until the next episode anyway, so it doesn't even really matter, is a very good introduction to the way we're gonna feel towards a lot of these demons. And then I remembered that I felt that way with the hand demon. I forgot that the final part of that battle was in episode 5, and the introduction to the idea that these demons are messed up people who made the wrong decision, and in their moments of death, they realize what they did and they are very humanized. So this is so late, I'm almost, yeah, I'm gonna put episode 5 in 8 out of 10. I just realized it also introduced Hagenezuka and his sword. So yeah, episode 5 belongs in 8 out of 10. Yeah, that feels right. I liked the fight with Susumaru and Yahaba. I'm trying to think if there was anything particularly special about it that like jumps out at me, because I don't want to just put everything that is not that interesting to me in 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. I'll put this one in 8 out of 10 just because I do think it was a really well done episode with the fight between these guys, and also learning a little bit about what like the rankings are for the demons. You know, right after Tamayo and Yushiro introduced the idea of the kind of upper rank, we get these guys that are like, oh, we are lower, or we're part of the 12 Kizuki, which turned out to be a lie. With that, oh, this is so hard, what the heck? I kind of don't feel like episode 7 belongs in 7 out of 10 then as well. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? I'm gonna put episode 7 in 8 out of 10. This is really hard, what the heck? Because I feel like all these episodes they're very different, but they're all establishing a story for us. So there's a lot more transitional content in season 1 because we have to establish a story, and they all do such a good job at it. So anyway, episode 9 is really quite good. I do like the fight with Susumaru and Yahaba. I like that it introduces, although I think episode 10 is when Nezuko starts kicking the ball. So episode 10, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna put episode 10 in. Oh, this is so much harder now that I'm doing it. I already knew this was gonna be hard, and it's way harder now. I'm gonna put episode 10. We have the end of the Susumaru and Yahaba fight. We have the introduction of Nezuko's abilities. We have the further introduction of these demons being very sad creatures, not just evil creatures. But there's not much on that front. I'm gonna have to also put this one in 8 out of 10. We're gonna have a lot of 8 out of 10s. I'm just warning y'all, which is still a very good ranking. I think that like the standards of Demon Slayers in general for me, it's very high. Did Zenitsu get introduced in episode 10? It's hard when I'm thinking about all of them at once, like which part is in which episode. I do think Zenitsu was introduced in episode 10 as well. I don't like his introduction. I understand why we introduced him that way. I have a lot of thoughts on Zenitsu. I love Zenitsu. I don't love the way he's introduced. It's just very crazy. But I do love the way Tanjiro reacts. And we got some of those legendary faces that Tanjiro makes in there. All of that was in episode 10. Episode 11 is the introduction to Suzumi Mansion, which is a very good introduction. We might just not have anything that belongs in 7 out of 10. I'm not gonna lie. I don't... I just love Demon Slayer. It's just hard for me to not give every single episode a very high rating. Okay, episode 11 is a longer introduction of Zenitsu. It is the introduction to Suzumi Mansion, and it's a very, like, not creepy, but the way they did this episode was very much like build up for a pretty creepy arc where we're gonna meet a lot of people. Episode 11 itself, all right, this is my 7 out of 10. I need to put, like, this is the one where I'm like, okay, what happened in this episode? It did start the fight with Kyogai. I don't remember how far we got, though. I genuinely don't. And this is like Zenitsu at his most annoying for me. For the record, like I said, I love Zenitsu. I do find him very annoying, which is why he's not as high on my list as all the other Kamaboko squad. I will make a video about it. This is not Zenitsu hate. I have opinions, I have biases. The way Zenitsu is written does annoy me. That's all. That being said, episode 12, so this is when we meet Inosuke and Zenitsu. We learn about what he can do when he's asleep. I actually freaking love this episode. It gives you a mystery of how does Zenitsu do that? It kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat because you want to know why he's like that. And it introduces Inosuke, who's one of my favorite characters. It's a rough introduction for him as well. I don't love his introduction either, but I have reasons as to why I like it more. And I'm pretty sure the fight of Tanjiro versus Kyogai starts in this episode as well. Overall, this is a very good episode. I'm actually going to give this one an A+ because this one is very exciting. It's got some good introduction of different abilities, some good character dynamics, and I really like it. I feel like I've talked a lot more about the ones that I don't like as much. Episode 13 is the final part of Tanjiro versus Kyogai. I believe this one ends with Tanjiro running to Inosuke full speed ahead to crack his ribs. So we'll talk about that in episode 14. I think this episode is quite good. I did really like the fight against Kyogai, and I also thought Kyogai was an interesting demon because he was the first one who got like a true backstory, if I can remember correctly. He is the first one where we're learning truly about the 12 Kizuki because he was a member, but he was stripped of his title, and he actually got flashbacks, and we started to see, you know, the way Tanjiro fights is very, he doesn't hesitate at all. I don't know why so many people are like, oh, he's like talk no jutsu. No, he's not. He only feels empathy for these demons after he's killed them, right? So I like that it established that Tanjiro has no hesitation anymore like he did in episode 2, right? Like that was a big deal in episode 2 that Udoka was like, he hesitated, he's too kind. But now we see like full circle that kindness has evolved into his kindness is like, I'm gonna put you out of your misery, essentially, right? So I really like this episode too. I very much like Suzumi Mansion. For some reason, a lot of people talk about not liking it. I really liked it. I feel like Tanjiro got his like superhero moment. He's a little bit talky during it. Like he just talks and talks and talks. He also has broken ribs. He also has a broken leg. And we kind of establish early on that, you know, their pain tolerance is very high in this show. I really liked episode 13. I'm going to give it an A+. So episode 14, this is my hot take. I freaking love this episode. This is like my crack. I love this episode. So first things first, we get introduced to truly Tanjiro's like dark side, and that is when Nezuko is in danger, he is a different person. He is someone who breaks Inosuke's ribs. Granted, Inosuke is a character, they become very quick friends when all is said and done. I also like that Zenitsu, we got to see Zenitsu's heart in this episode, and that is with him protecting Nezuko. I like the idea that a lot of times, and Zenitsu gets overlooked because he is annoying, and even I overlook him sometimes because I do just find him annoying, but there are quite a few times in this show where Zenitsu brings up something with Tanjiro that Tanjiro mentioned offhandedly, and Zenitsu was able to recognize how important it was to him because of his acute sense of hearing. And this is one of them, right? Tanjiro wasn't even talking to Zenitsu when he said, what's in that box is worth more to me than my own life. Zenitsu heard that and understood that when Inosuke was trying to attack the box, which Zenitsu already knew it was a demon, was kind of questioning Tanjiro in his mind, because why was Tanjiro with a demon when, granted, at this point in the show, we as an audience know there are good demons, but no one else in the story outside of Tanjiro, Nezuko, and Gyu know that there is an existence of good demons, right? So Zenitsu is questioning him, but he understands very quickly to protect, and I really like that with Zenitsu. It's one of my most favorite moments with him. I also love the second half of this episode just being 100% slapstick comedy. I think this show needs that. I love that it has that because it is a very dark and very emotional show. So I love that episode 14 really takes the time to just give you some good belly laughs. One of my favorite memes is in this episode, and it's when Tanjiro is waving to the kids saying goodbye. And he's literally holding Zenitsu, who is knocked out by Tanjiro, by the way. He had it with Zenitsu, and karate chopped him in the neck to knock him out. Tanjiro had it. I loved that Zenitsu brought out his impatience, right? But anyway, the meme is him waving at the kids, holding an unconscious Zenitsu while Inosuke headbutts a tree behind him. It is the epitome of the chaos of the Kamaboko Squad, and it is really the first introduction to how close these characters are going to be throughout the show. I genuinely love this episode so much that I'm putting it in 9 out of 10. A lot of people forget about this episode because it is a very, very transitional episode, but it establishes a lot of story and a lot of character interactions, and it's also just freaking hilarious, and I love that. Episode 15 is the introduction to Mount Natagumo. We meet Murata, who becomes a very well-loved character in the series. I'm trying to think how far we got in this episode. It is kind of hard to remember where each episode ends. I believe this one ends with Rui on his strings, kind of threatening them. I think that's where this one ends. I'm gonna give this one an 8 out of 10. I have so many an 8 out of 10. I think this is a good transitional one. I don't feel like there's a ton of special things outside of it being really creepy and introducing the best arc of the season. So I think it's quite good, but I think it's fairly average when it comes to episodes in Demon Slayer. Episode 16, I adore this episode. This one, we start to see Tanjiro and Inosuke's teamwork and how Inosuke is just so trying to not be a teammate, but be the leader, be in charge, right? But they immediately work so well together. There's something about the way Tanjiro and Inosuke work together that just, they mesh very well together, right? And then we have one of the most beautiful scenes, which is the picture of this one. And that is the water breathing, what is it called? Blessed rainfall after a drought. When Tanjiro sees that she is accepting of her death, and he was going to do a pretty rough, I think he was just going to do first form, which is water surface slash, he changed to a more gentle one, which just shows how kind he is, but still how much he will not hesitate to end them. He knows that she is in pain. He knows that she is happy to accept death in this moment, but he also knows that that doesn't mean that he can just not kill her and try and get her to join their side, even though there would be good reason for him to do that. He's met enough good demons that it wouldn't be surprising if he started trying to talk to these demons, but he is well aware that she has been killing all of those demon slayers. Oh, we also saw when they were trying to save those slayers that had been like strung up by her, one of them was asking them to kill them because of the bones like being in their organs and like they weren't gonna make it. But then when the mother demon decided to kill them, Tanjiro was so angry that Inosuke was shaking. That's such a good moment. I love that moment. I really like this episode. I'm putting it in A+. Very, very good. All right, episode 17. This is my favorite part of Zenitsu's story so far in the anime. This is a very good episode. Overall, just Zenitsu's character development, the soundtrack and the animation and everything involved with this episode is just really freaking good. I don't have really anything to say about this except it is a 10 out of 10. I don't have any qualms with this episode, but I can't put it in best episode because we all know what best episode is going to be. That should be no surprise to anybody. But Zenitsu's fight sequence in this arc is one of my absolute favorite moments with him. I really, really liked this episode. I loved that we got his backstory. I loved that we saw thunder breathing, which is so beautifully done. I loved that it's like he was asleep, but he wasn't. You know what I mean? Like, it was our first real introduction to the possibility of him being able to fight while conscious, because we haven't seen that yet. Obviously, he wasn't fighting conscious in this fight, but he was like partly there, I felt like. So really good development on his part, good introduction to thunder breathing and all that stuff. So very, 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 very good episode. Episode 18, Gyu is back. This is when they're like running from the father demon, and Inosuke has some big moments because he almost dies and then Gyu saves him. And we get our first little moment of like, oh, like Inosuke's backstory, but he's so Inosuke that he's just like, who are you? It's like, well, I think we know who that is, Inosuke. And I am very, very, very much excited for the next movie. That's all I'll say. That was good. And then Gyu's introduction, and then of course the start of the fight against Rui. I am going to put this one in A+. I definitely like the Zenitsu episode better because it is one of my favorite moments with Zenitsu ever, but this one is a close one behind that one. So we are at episode 19. I don't think this should surprise anyone, but this is definitely going in best episode of season 1. I mean, that's a pretty widely accepted opinion. Episode 19 was definitely part of the reason I got into the show. I started getting really obsessed with the show in Entertainment District, surprisingly. A lot of people are usually surprised when I tell them it actually took me until Entertainment District for it to be my hyperfixation. I definitely loved the show. It was definitely one of my favorites, if not my favorites. Earlier than that, episode 19, I very distinctly remember it finished and we were like, is that the end of the season? And then it wasn't, and we were a bit confused because it was so beautiful. So this episode is good from start to finish. Everyone talks about the final sequence, of course, because of the introduction of Kamado Tanjiro no Uta and Hinokami Kagura, and those flashbacks and just the way that whole scene was done is like, I can't think of any better way to do it, right? But I liked the first half of it too, just the introduction of Rui and learning about him, learning that he is in fact lower 5, and learning that this is our first true experience fighting a member of the 12 Kizuki, because we had some that were lying and they weren't. We had one who used to be a member, and now we have our first member who is truly actually a member of the 12 Kizuki. So I really liked the back and forth there, how Rui wanted to use Nezuko as a bargaining chip, and Tanjiro was like, oh hell no, like no freaking way. He fought for her autonomy, you know, he was like, she's not a thing, she's still a person with thoughts, even though she's been very just like, you know, she's not talking, she just kind of follows him wherever he goes. He is still very much fighting for her right to choose what she wants to do, that he sees that even though she has lost a lot of her human abilities, he is still able to say, no, she still gets to choose where she wants to go. And the stakes are very, very high. You know, Rui is a very difficult foe. Tanjiro's getting kind of beat up the entire time. And then the second half of the episode, when first we get 10th form, constant flux. Then we get like the flashbacks with Tanjiro, which I really, really enjoyed. The music. I mean, I skate to Kamado Tanjiro no Uta. I'll put my video of me skating to it right here. I really love this music. This music means a lot to me. It brings so many tears to my eyes. If you've ever looked at the English translation of the song, I highly suggest doing so. It'll make you cry. It is Tanjiro's song, so it is supposed to be him, like his own words, right? And when you put yourself in like the shoes of Tanjiro while looking at the English lyrics to that song, it's like, oh my goodness, this is like really sad actually. But it's a very beautiful piece of music. And then of course the animation just went off, like absolutely stunning, gorgeous, beautiful. It also has my favorite unironic funny moment when he has to say, he says something, I'm paraphrasing, he says like, since I changed from water to fire breathing, if I stop now, I won't be able to move. But in Japanese, he has to say quite the mouthful. It is a run-on sentence that is very long, so I find it unironically funny because I'm like, poor dude was just like in the studio, and yet he still manages to make it sound good because it's Hanai-san and he's amazing. Anyway, so yeah, episode 19, by far the best episode of season 1, although there are still some good ones to come. This one is just a masterpiece. It is Demon Slayer at its very best. It is what put Demon Slayer truly on the map. I feel like leading up to this, it was still very popular and it was still very loved, but it felt a lot more just like, okay, it's another shonen. This one was like, oh, this is special. And it really put it as the shonen of, you know, this was in 2019, but kind of the 2020s, right? All right, so episode 20, I have mixed feelings on this one because there's a lot that goes on in this episode. First, we get introduced to the fact that Tanjiro didn't take Rui down. And I actually really like that they did this. People try to say that Demon Slayer is very repetitive. I actually very much disagree with that because in this fight, Tanjiro couldn't win against Rui. He was unable, even though he was able to awaken a new ability. He was not just made OP where he was able to just take Rui down. He wasn't able to. Rui was smarter than that. But then Gyu showed up and was like, yeah, no, you're done. And it was over immediately. I also liked that we got to see Shinobu do her thing. That was kind of crazy. Girl was like a witch in this episode, and I love every second of it. Shinobu's introduction is very interesting because she's very confident and her breathing style is very beautiful and she's fast and oh my gosh, okay. I think she's such a queen. So what else happens in this episode? Was that the backstory of the sister demon? And that was fine. That's why I feel like I have mixed feelings. I really, really loved Dead Calm and that. And I really loved Shinobu's like full introduction, but then like the whole little backstory of like her time with Rui was interesting because we saw how like psycho he was and what they had to go through to become a part of his family was crazy. But it was also just kind of like meh. I didn't have much interest in the sister. I didn't really feel bad for her. And honestly, the story she said made her seem even less lovable because she stabbed the one girl in the back, which led to the girl being killed. So I will still put this definitely in. I'm going back and forth. I'm gonna have to put it in A+. So episode 21 has Rui's backstory, and Rui is like the first one who gets like a full fleshed out backstory. We also get to see some interactions with Tanjiro and Gyu again, which is one of my favorite dynamics in the entire story. We see him be very protective over them when Shinobu tries to kill Nezuko. We get introduced to Kanao a little bit more, and that's kind of it in this. I do really like Rui's backstory. I think it's the first one that really is fully fleshed out. We truly see how manipulative Muzan is when he took like a literal sick child and was like, well, I can let you live for a lot longer, but he obviously didn't really specify what, what was gonna happen. So he definitely preyed on very desperate people to try and save their son. And then of course that led to him killing his parents because his parents intended to die with him because they felt that his sins of killing people was unforgivable, which they are correct. And him learning about the bonds of a true family. And it is very, very sad how he just chased familial bonds his entire life as a demon because he felt like he never got that as a human. And then he met Tanjiro and Nezuko, which are like the picture perfect example of a bond between family. And he realized that he was chasing the wrong thing this entire time and that sort of thing. It was very bittersweet. It was a very sad ending for him. And I really did enjoy his backstory. Still, that being said, it's going in A+. Okay, Hashira meeting. I actually want to talk about this entire sequence of events soon because I have some thoughts on it. I feel like I say that a lot in my videos. Someone should have a running checklist of the amount of times I say in videos. That's another video for another day. I probably have at least 10 videos like that. Y'all should let me know in the comments how many times I've said that and what I've said that about, because I need to get on those videos for sure. I love the introduction to the Hashira. It is not a fun introduction. Most of them you kind of hate when you first meet them, but that makes it fun, and that makes the character development of all those characters so much more interesting. I low-key love that every single one of them, except for select few, were like, yeah, let's kill Nezuko, and oh, let's also kill Tanjiro, even though he's a human. Like, they're kind of crazy, and I love it. I love how every single Hashira is very colorful and has a very unique design. You instantly get the idea that these guys are important, but then you're like, I kind of hate them because they're so mean. But we go into this episode with us as an audience. We went on the journey with Tanjiro so far. And like I said earlier in the video, our very first exposure to a demon is Nezuko. And then we meet Tamayo and Yoshiro a little bit later. So we as an audience and Tanjiro going into this meeting have a lot more context than all the other characters. Every other character here has experienced death at the hands of demons, and nothing but death at the hands of demons. They have never met a good demon or even a remotely somewhat good demon, right? The idea of someone harboring a demon, it makes sense that they would be so like, okay, this guy's clearly like a traitor. He's trying to infiltrate us, that sort of thing. So I thought the introduction to them was very interesting. The episode still like pisses me off, but it's so, looking back, satisfying to feel so annoyed with these characters and then think about how much they've grown and how much they've learned since then. I'm gonna put this in 9 out of 10. I've got quite a few A+ here. I think this one definitely solidly finds itself in 9 out of 10. Okay, I'm almost done. So I'm gonna try and speed run these last few because they're all fairly quick. I do really like episode 23 because we truly see Nezuko's ability to keep herself from killing a human. I'm not going to go into detail. There is something that's going to be revealed later that makes the scene even more important, but for the sake of manga spoilers, I will not talk about that, but just keep that in mind for y'all for later on. We will loop back to this scene in some way, and it'll be very satisfying. I'm thinking through the episode right now. It's good. It's good. This is definitely an 8 out of 10 episode, for sure. It's just like, it's good. It's a good transition from like the annoyance of the meeting to the start of like his rehabilitation training and all of that stuff, which leads me to episode 24, which is definitely my least favorite episode of the season. That being said, I still like it. This episode to me is just, what can I say? I'm not the biggest fan of training arcs, which is interesting to say the least. I did enjoy Hashira training. That'll be another video for another day. This one just goes in 7 out of 10. I like it. Like, it's still very good. I think it still has good introduction to certain characters. And I do love to watch this episode when I'm like on the treadmill at the gym because it is very motivating to see how much Tanjiro's trying. Like, I gotta be like Tanjiro. Episode 25 is Kanao's backstory. Love this episode. Kanao's backstory does not get talked about enough. It is very, 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 very sad. She's like never known true, real love, right? She didn't even suffer at the hands of demons. She suffered at the hands of humans, which I think just goes to show it's really how you're saved in this show. It's really an exterior force that decides whether or not you go down the correct path. Kanao's story is one of my favorites. But for the sake of spoilers, again, I won't talk too much about it because there is a lot of things to come for her. That being said, the rest of the episode is good. I like the rehabilitation arc. It's just like kind of meh to me. I'm gonna put this one in 8 out of 10 just because I do enjoy the introduction of Kanao's character and that sort of thing. Which leads me to episode 26, which might surprise people since I was just saying that the rehabilitation part of the show is kind of meh to me. I'm actually putting episode 26 in... Do I put it up there? It'll go in A+. I was considering putting it in 10 out of 10. I think it belongs just below that because when I look at the Zenitsu episode, I definitely would say I like that one a little bit better. I really like the season finale of season 1. We get some really good interactions between Tanjiro and Kanao, which I love. The destruction of the lower moons was crazy. The introduction of Enmu, that scene was insane. I watched that scene and I was like, bro, if I see so many like young kids that watch this show, kids these days must be built different. I'm showing my age. I'm almost 30. When I was like 6 years old, if I watched something like this, I would have lost my mind. That scene in particular with like the blood dripping and the heads just like, it's so good, but man, oh man. And then I really, really like the transition to the Mugen Train, the little character interactions between them. When Shinobu, is that in the season finale? When Shinobu gets asked by the master like why she suggested sending them to the Mugen Train with Rengoku. Just overall very good. I love that they played good Enge at the end of this episode, and it's just a very, very good episode. So that's my list. I feel like I started getting more and more just like, that's good. Next, as this video progressed, because I have been recording for almost an hour, this will definitely be my longest one of these. It's so hard for me to like on the fly be like, oh, this is the ranking of this episode, especially season 1. Because there is just a lot of development of the story in this season. We have to meet a lot of new characters. I feel like the show really finds its stride with Mugen Train, but it's not like it needed to. Like season 1 was already spectacular. So there's my list of episodes from season 1. What is your list? Let me know in the comments below. And please remember, these are just my opinions. I hope I've made that very, very clear without directly saying that. And should I make Mugen Train and Entertainment District together and then do Swords and Village and Hashira Training together? Let me know if you want me to just do it that way, because that's still almost 10 episodes less than what I just did. But that's gonna be it for today's video. If you liked it, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment your thoughts. And I will see you all in the next one. Mata ne!